Okay.
Thanks, Wangdu. Right, here we go. So we were due this time round to complete the recitations of the Mangala Sutta, which I shall call up for you. And just share screen, the room, screen share. Sutta. Okay, can you all see Mangala Sutta on the shared screen? Thank you. And verse 8. So, oh, by the way, Simon, thanks again for sending that article by Tanisaro Bhikkhu. I think he's really, I don't know if whether you've had a chance to read it. It's quite a short piece. I included it in my group email, my last group email. I think he really condenses a big subject very well. It's good. It's a punchy piece, so kind of well sent. Thank you, Simon. I think it should be of benefit to us all. And as I said, um, the word appamada or appamadena, the Buddha said it in the instrumental form, short, seconds before his physical death, would have my vote as the most important word of his entire teaching, because it's the one word by which he encouraged everyone how to live their lives. Appamadena, with appamada. So I do encourage you to read Bhikkhu Tanisaro's quite short article, it's just a page or so, that I sent the link to with my most I set with my second last email to you. So I'll read through this once again, and then we can anyone who hasn't had a go at reciting can will have the chance now. So Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etam mangalamuttamam. So I'm afraid I don't have a note of who did and who didn't recite last time. So I'll just go around you once. I'll just go around you all on my screen and ask you. Keith, did you recite last time? Okay, you're first up then.
Okay. Arati, Virati, Papa. Am I on the right verse? Yes, I am. Majjapana, Chaitanyamo, Atpamado, Cha Dhammesu, Etam Mangalamuttamang.
That was pretty good, Keith. But earlier, when you were focusing on which I thought was a brilliant idea, actually, your Morse code approach to it, you were more precise and sure-footed then when you were applying that technique. Are you able to apply it now? Very closely distinguishing between the heavies and the lights.
Yes, it's da di da di di da da da. First.
Indeed, it is. If you translate that into real language now.
Arati, Virati, Papa, Majjapana, Cha Sanyamo, Atpamado, Cha Dhammesu, Etang Mangalamuttamang.
Okay, very nice, but with one thing, I might not always pick others up on it, but I'm going to pick you up on it particularly because of our Morse code. There's a tendency among native English speakers, we see like a monosyllabic word ending in an a, and say ta, blah. So we tend to lengthen it, but remember it's pronounced short ch. In fact, if you're a Sinhala speaker, it'll be even like a ch sound, ch. We'll hear Srinamala in a moment, but that final, in northern India, it would pronounce a short ah. In Sinhala, even short, like an sound. But remember not to make it long because you can spoil the meter there. But otherwise, fine. Thank you, Keith. You see, it did go better when you were focusing back on the heavies and the lights. Right. So, Mariano, I think you might have had to leave us before we got to the recitations last time round. Do I remember
All right.
correctly?
I can't remember, but fine. So, Arati Virati Papa Majjapana Cha Sanyamo Appamado Cha Dhammesu Etamangalam Uttamam.
Can you just read the first line again?
Arati Virati Papa Majjapana Cha Sanyamo.
Say Sanyamo.
Sanyamo.
Okay, right, yeah. That's because remember on a previous occasion your final O had kind of become an Italian open, bit of an Italian open O sound, but that came out much better. It's the pursed lips, the O sound. Okay, thank you, Mariano. Very good. So Simon, had you? No, right.
Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etang mangalamuttamam.
Okay, very nice, Simon. Just thinking of that word sanyamo, what does the word sanyamo mean to you, Simon? Not just the translation, what's the feeling of it?
I don't really know what you mean, the feeling of it. I mean, it's from sanyati, isn't it?
It's sanyam from the root yum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like restraint or holding something back.
That's right. It's an idea of like a kind of forceful restraint of it. I was in a group, an online group, maybe about 3 years ago now, where people were discussing a particular verse of the Dhammapada, where the words Dhammo and Sanyamo appeared. It's talking about basically, what to do with, sense impulses, and talking about Dhammo and Sanyamo. And the words, let me just call up the iPad screen here. Oops. The two words, they were Dhamma and Sanyama. By the way, Sanyama can equally be correctly written as with an anusvara, like that. Both are correct spellings in Pali. And the people involved in this meeting, and this is actually a really good example of why we're studying Pali, people looking at a translation, and the translation it was a very good translation. It was in fact translation by Valerie Roebuck. At least a couple of people here might recognize that name. And the words used were control and restraint. Okay, so far so good. If you are forced to do a single word translation, that's they're as good as any, almost. But the problem was, all of these people at this online meeting then said, oh, control and restraint. What's the difference between control and restraint? And then they started going off, and I thought, hang on, I didn't say it. It wasn't my place to say it. Hang on, you should be stopping here. Here we are, either all native English speakers or people who know English very well and are operating in English, discussing the meanings that English speakers have in the 21st century about these two words and how they compare one with another, restraint and control. and the conversation went down a bit of a blind alley. But if you go back to the Dhammapada, in fact, I think I should even be able to call it up almost immediately for you. Browse. Ooh, I've got an even. I'm just calling up the Dhammapada. And I'm fairly sure. Sorry about this. I'll be right with you. Pali Dhammapada, chapter 2. Oh, sorry, I got stuck behind you. Here we are. It's Dhammapada chapter 2, verse 5, or verse 25. It's Uttanena Pamadena Sanyamena Damena Cha. Sanyamena Damena Cha. By Sanyama and Dhamma. Here it's spoke with the Anuspara, as I said, it's the same. By self-restraint and control. So the conversation went on, what's the difference between the meaning of these two words? And this was an absolutely perfect example of how going back into the Pali just makes the meanings so transparent. The idea of yam meaning the kind of exertion of a gentle force, as in lifting something heavy or pushing against something, not a violent striking force, but a gentle force, as in lifting. So the sanyama is just a force used to hold something in.
Can I ask whether Damena is cognate with Dominus?
Yes, you may, and it is. I'll become it. It is directly cognate. So the sanyama is the kind of using an effort to hold something back in, as for example, a sudden burst of anger wants to get out. A bit of effort you'll use to hold it back in. I've also in the past used the slightly vulgar example of there's something you might have to hold back in because it might be antisocial not to at that moment. So the effort that you are making is an effort of sanyama, you see, restraining it back in. Dhamma has a really different tone to it. Dhamma is cognate with our English word to tame something. It's also cognate with here now in, back to Mariano's point, it's cognate with the Latin word domus, which basically means a house. But you've got a domesticated animal. You've got the dominus, who's the person in charge of the domus. Dominus, which English domination, and some other cognate words. Dominus, domus. The idea is your domus is the tamed area. If we think back thousands of years ago, with forests and hostile tribes, wild animals, your domus is where things were tamed under your control. You had domesticated animals there, the wild animals and hostile tribes or groups were kept out. So the notion of sanyama and dhamma, sanyama is you're exercising this power, strength to hold something in, not let it get out. The dhamma has a different meaning, that you have parts of yourself, the wild animal in oneself. If you tame it, let's take an ordinary wild animal, if you tame it, you do two very useful things. Firstly, it's no longer dangerous. And secondly, you can use its strength and its power in your own service. You get a wild dog, it's dangerous and useless. Tame the dog, it's no longer dangerous, and it's actually very useful. Be a hunting dog and a guard dog, and that kind of thing. From the root dum, see, so the root is dum. In the Itipiso chant, we have the Purisadhamma Sarati, Purisadhamma. Now, it's written as Dhamma, and I explain this word. The Dhamma is actually, in Sanskrit, it is Dhammya. It is one of the ways of making the future passive participle, means requiring to be tamed, needing to be tamed. And by specialization of meaning, it has come to mean a wild horse that can be tamed. In fact, the phrase used in Mexican Spanish and then into the Wild West is the bronco, the bucking bronco. So the bronco is the untamed horse. And in the Itipiso chant, we talk about the Purisadhamma. Purisa meaning the Purisadhamma is the human bronco. In other words, we are being likened here to a wild horse that requires to be tamed for two purposes, not only to make it less danger or to remove its danger, but also so that these forces and powers can be made useful. So this verse here was just a great example however good your translation by self-restraint and control, yeah, okay, but if you delve into the real feel of the Pali words, you can just feel the force of these words. Hopefully you can. So where were we? Here we are.
So it's not an oppressive force, it's a force that it's not an oppressive force, it's more a force that we can use that energy.
It's just a force that you can, which untamed is dangerous. In fact, at the beginning of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says, I know of no one thing that leads to such harm and misery as the adantam chittam, the adantam chittam, the untamed mind. Simon, please.
Thinking a couple of points about this. There are two essential differences. One of them is that you can't apply sanyama to something that's outside of yourself, whereas you can tame an animal. The second one is that...
Excuse me one moment, Simon. When you see me fiddling with my phone, I'm not rudely checking messages. I'm just adjusting got new hearing aids that I had to adjust off my phone screen. I'm just checking it there. Okay, sorry. Okay, we don't adjust it. Thank you, Simon. Please carry on.
Yeah, the first thing is that you can't really apply the sanyama to an external object like an animal. It's to do with oneself. You're kind of I've not seen it used in that sense. And it's also about kind of changing behavior, isn't it? When you look at how dameti is used with animals, it's always an animal that then becomes useful. So it's
that's right. Yes. Mm.
And it just occurs to me that's also the final thing that Eliot goes on about at the end of The Wasteland, isn't it? When he breaks into Sanskrit, damyata. He translates it as self-control. It's like what the thunder said. If you've read that.
Oh, that's right. And there were three verbs that were used because the god had been. Yeah, there were three verbs, all with beginning with the roots began with the letter d. Yeah. Mm. So damyata, be self-taming. Yes, I do recall that now. Nice. You mentioned that sanyama couldn't be for an external force. Mostly it's used in respect of the internal, negative, just things like anger or desire that can be held in. I suspect I'd have to look further on this, but I suspect if you were, as it were, restraining a violent criminal or something, that I think sanyama could appropriately be used. You
Okay.
actually, so you've got your internal force that you're holding, or you're actually restraining. In the Latin word restringere mean to restrain back, to hold back.
I suppose there is vyama or byama, because the idea is you're stretching your arms against something like a bow or something.
Exactly so. So in fact, we've got the Sanskrit vyayama, which is viyama is kind of the pulling away, the ayama pulling towards yourself, and the Sanskrit vyayama, which becomes in Pali vayama, as in that element of the Eightfold Path, sammavayamo, often translated as right effort. Again, it's more than just an effort. It's this pulling one way and exerting the pulling like a tug of war, a wise engagement, where to push, where to pull, where to be pulled, where to pull back. But the vayama, not the vyayama. I think it becomes byama in Pali. Imasminyeva byama mate kalevere, in this fathom-long body, and it's translated as fathom. But the byama is, the outstretching of the arms. If you physically stretch your arms out, that is the vyama, the outstretching, like the exerting force to stretch your arms as far away from you as you can, and that's the span of the arms. And then that phrase used in this very outstretched length or span measured body, Right, we can go on with the recitation. Judith, had you recited last time?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
So, Arati Papa Magya Panaja Sanamo Sanyamo Apamadoja Damesu Etamangalam Uttamam.
Okay, Judith. Now, this word appamado, da 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 da, da 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 da, and also can you pronounce it with a very distinct doubling of the P? Appamado.
Appamado.
Try to make the final O a bit less English. Appamado, the O.
Appamadoja.
That's much better. That's much better. Appamado.
Appamadoja Damesu Etamangalam Uttamam.
Okay, that's not too bad, but just remember this again. We've got an A here before a single consonant, therefore there's a tendency in English speakers say dammesu, dammesu. You've got to give it a full dammesu.
Damesu.
That's much better. Now just recite this, just pada again, this half line. Appamado cha dammesu. That came out beautifully. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now do the last part. Etam mangalamuttamam.
So I'm slightly confused because we've got two dudas. Appamedoja damesu etamangalam uttamam.
Etam mangalamuttamam. You've got to pronounce a double M here because we've got this word ending in an M, and the next one beginning with an M. So they've both got etam mangalam, etam mangalamuttamam.
Etam mangalam uttamam.
You've got it, yeah. You see, you can do it very well. It's just a question of focusing on the longs and the shorts and the and the doubles. I'm going to ask you to do it once more. the entire verse, really focusing on the longs and the shorts and the double consonants.
Orati, verti, papa,
Ah,
papa,
pa,
papa,
pa.
majo, panacha, sanmo,
Sanyamu.
sanyamo,
Yeah.
apamedocha, damesu et mangalamuttamam.
You're slipping back, but you've already demonstrated that you can do it very well. So I feel slightly justified, just slightly in picking on you, because I've just heard you a few moments ago. So appamado chadhammesu etam mangalamuttamam.
Amedocha, damesu et mangalamuttamam.
Okay, very nice. Apart from the fact that this this came out as an A, where it's an A.
Sorry,
Appamado. Appamado. Okay, I'll stop picking on you, Judith. Thank you. But you see, you've demonstrated yourself. It can be done. It can be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Teresa, let's come round to you.
Okay. Arati, Varati, Papa, Majapana cha, Sanyamo, Appamadocha, Damesu, Etam, Mangalam, Muttaman.
Yeah, that was pretty good, though I just would want to hear a little bit more emphasis on the length of this A. Dhammesu, dhammesu.
Damesu.
Right. Yeah, that much better. Also, this cha, remember to make it very short. So, Majapana Chasanyamo.
Majapana cha Sanyamo.
You see, there's another little air because you've got this second R right. Under the phonetics of English, you'd shorten the previous one to make it pana. You've got to give them equal length. Pana. Pana.
Pana, Majapana cha Sanyamo.
Yeah, so exactly so. The errors that I hear being made are the gravitational pull of the phonetics of English. So, and for example, if we have a word like take this word, if we put the stress on the second syllable, the second R, then under the phonetics of English, we'd naturally pronounce it pana and make the first syllable short. But remember, you aren't allowed to do that in Sanskrit and Pali. If it's long, it has to remain long. Majapana chasanyamo.
Majapana cha Sanyamo.
Exactly. Excellent. That was excellent. Hold that in your mind, Teresa, and let that be your own model for the next one. Thank you, Teresa. Now, Dilly, did you recite it last time?
I did.
Okay, but even though you did, I want both you and Shriyanimala both to recite it again.
Okay.
And because it's very natural for Sinhala speakers to get the vowel lengths right. And for example, not to pronounce ch as cha, but you'll hear, just focus on the, in fact, there are two chas here. Just listen carefully. Listen carefully to the entire way that Dilly pronounces it. It's a good model. Shrinamala, you're both good models. But listen to this very short as they pronounce the ch. Okay, Dilly, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you. Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etang mangalamuttamang.
That's lovely. Thank you, Dilly. Did you all notice the very short ch? The very, very short vowel after that ch? That's correct. The tone of it is slightly different between, for example, Hindi and Sinhala. In Sinhala, it's more of a ch and sound. In Hindi, for example, more of a slightly more open sound. But nevertheless, they're both short. So, Shriyanimala, can we come round to you? So equally, I invite all of you to hear both Dilly's
Yes.
and Sri Animala's version as a model to be followed.
Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha dhammesu etang mangalamuttamang.
You see, lovely. You've heard models, good models to be followed of how it can be done. So, okay, thank you. So, Paladin?
Yes, I don't
Had
think
you
no,
recited?
No, I don't think I did.
I'm just wondering if anybody recited last time, because nobody was claiming.
You
Sorry,
did,
sorry, Dilly said. Maybe we just got as far as Dilly and Srinimala.
I think you're asking the people from the Asian languages to do it, and the rest of us fell off.
Okay. Okay, Paladin, round to you now anyway.
Okay. Arati virati papa majjapana chasanyamo appamado chadammesu etam mangalamuttamam.
Okay, that was very nice. I normally am telling people not to over lengthen the short vowels, but you slightly overdid the short. That was barely audible. You said, so just say uppa. It's short, but it's distinctly there. Appamado.
Amado.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Paladin. Thank you. Judy, we're round to you.
Arati virati papa majapana cha sanyamo appamado cha demesu etang mangalanguttamang.
Okay, that was very nice indeed. But one point I noticed, when you pronounce appamado, you correctly pronounce that long O at the end. But when you pronounced sanyamo at the end of the first line, you kind of shortened the vowel somewhat,
Okay.
as if you're in a hurry to get get. So just say majjapana cha sanyamo.
Majjapana cha sanyamo.
That was perfect. That was very good. Okay, thank you, Judy. Fenny, and then we'll be round to Sanyu.
Sorry, have a go. Arati virati papa majjapana cha sanyamo appamado cha damesu etam mang. I'm messing this up. Appamado cha damesu etam mangalamuttamam.
Okay, right, but that was absolutely fine. But
Appamado.
that's correct. That's appamado, very distinct doubling. In here, equally, damesu, a distinct doubling.
Tripping over my tongue, I'm afraid, but yes.
I'm sorry, say again?
I kept tripping over my tongue.
Okay, fine. It gets in the way when we're trying to talk, doesn't it? Or our English habits get in the way. Okay, thank you, Fenny. And Sanyu, we are round to you for the final member to recite.
Arati virati papa mecha panacha sanyamo appamado cha dammesu etam mangalam muttamam.
That was very nice because that was, had this lovely Burmese tone to it. Can you just say this word dhammesu again?
Dammesu.
Okay, so as we were discussing earlier, the Indians, the Sri Lankans can pronounce the correctly. English speakers have a little bit of a difficulty because we don't normally do it. I think Italian speakers, well, you've got used to it, Mary. You can say dhamma, can't you? Go on.
Yeah, dhamma, but it is not a natural Italian sound.
Certainly it's not. That was why I was picking on you there. And you made it a slight bit of a t rather than a the. That was much better. The point is, it's a tricky one unless it's native. As Dilly Sri and Amala can do it naturally. People from India can do it naturally. As we were mentioning before, the Thais can't do it. They make the into a th. They talk about the dhamma. The Burmese do it a different way, as we learned from Sanyu. They keep it as a D, but they drop the aspiration, so it becomes a dammesu. So as we were discussing earlier, if you actually said dammesu like that, an Indian would hear you think, hey, that means among the wild horses. That word dhamma that we were just talking, not dhamma, but dhamma. So there is actually quite an important distinction there. So do your best to get it right, as you're all doing. So this brings us to the end of the this verse 8. So any queries, and then we'll pass on to the next one. Simon, please come in.
Just to ask about that aspiration on that, the aspirate DH or TH. In terms of how the mouth works, why is the T easier than the D? Because it is, but I can't. They seem to come from the same place. You put your tongue in very close to the same place. Yeah, it is one that causes trouble.
Okay. First of all, you're saying the tongue is very close to the same place. So I go even further to say that the tongue isn't exactly the same place. It's the dental the, t, the. The tongue isn't exactly the same place. The sounds that the native English speaker can pronounce very easily. It's more apparent with a p. But if we have a word beginning with a p followed by a vowel, the English pronounce it with a bit of a puff of breath. Just say the word puff. If you put the back of your hand in front of your mouth, you can hear this puff. You can hear the breath coming out. The puh. So for example, a Hindi speaker would hear that as an aspirated P. So it's actually a little bit tricky for an English speaker to say, for example, this word pana and papa. We tend to say papa. So that's just because of the native phonetics of English. We automatically aspirate the k and the t and the p at the beginning of words. It's just the phonetics of English, but we do the opposite with a g and a b and a d. We naturally pronounce those unaspirated. So when we have to pronounce an unaspirated b, papa, or the aspirated b, bhaya, we're going contrary to the way that we naturally speak English. Now, speakers like Srinamala, Dilli, Sanyu, Mariano would all find it easy to pronounce the unaspirated papa, because that's how it's pronounced in the native languages. It's just a matter of a bit of restraint, a bit of sanyama, or even dhamma. Sanyama and dhamma, more dhamma than sanyama, I think, of the tendencies of the phonetics of our native language.
If I can add something there, my difficulty is in the difference between a t and a d is that you've got to be mindful of the voiced part in d. So there is something extra to take into consideration. When it is voiced and making it aspirated as well becomes a bit more complicated.
That's right, because it's not natural for you as an Italian speaker, or for most of us here as native English speakers. But you put your finger on an interesting point there.
So if it is a plosive sound, there is already air coming out, in a way.
But you've just got to put that extra little puff of air there to make it.
Whereas you've got to restrain somehow when you do it voiced. Yeah. Whereas
you do, yeah.
James, when I'm trying to explain to people how you pronounce those aspirated ones that are difficult, sometimes it's if you think about a word like redhead or hoghead, and then just sort of lose the beginning of the previous syllable, you get a feel for how it naturally comes. I mean, it can make people overemphasize it. If you think of redhead and then you just go the bit, That sort of gets you in the right area a little bit.
It's so okay. You're right there. In fact, there as you've no doubt seen, there are all sorts of grammar books and manuals that will say think of it as like redhead and loghead. That makes it come out a little bit over aspirated and over crude. However, there is some advantage in it because it's better to overdo it than not to do it at all. If you don't do it at all, you might be saying an entirely wrong word, as in the difference between dhamma and dhamma. So if you have to err at all, err on the side of overdoing it. And that is where the example that Paladin just gave would come in, a redhead. So if you find difficulty initially, that is, that example given by Paladin would be a good one. And actually, it was interesting that Mariano brought in the idea of mindfulness here, because I think even mindfulness and our normal bhavana, our normal sense of practicing mindfulness might be helpful in being, the physical, just the body awareness of flow of breath and of whether a sound is voiced or unvoiced. I think you all know what this means. The voiced and the unvoiced is the difference in the voiced. The unvoiced means the vocal cords are actually vibrating as you make the sound the and da. So
the other complicating factor, James, is in words like Buddha and Dharma. They've sort of come into English without the aspiration. So people will commonly just say Buddha and Dharma without any aspiration, and that's what people are used to hearing.
That's what they're used to hearing. Again, these words have just become so fully assimilated into English. That we pronounce it with as if they were English words without making any attempt. You find that in Thailand they do the same. For example, if you call up the iPad again. Oops. Just take that example, Buddha. Now, by an oddity of the phonetics of Thai, what in Pali and Sanskrit is an initial B will often actually come to be pronounced, oops, my pen gone funny. I think my pen's gone funny. Here we are. An initial B will often actually come out as a P. In Thai, it shouldn't, but it does. I say it shouldn't. Who am I to tell the Thais what they should say? The point is, an initial B the Thais would pronounce in their natives as a P. And the Buddha, if they're pronouncing the word in full, it would come out as Putta. It seems in Buddha, the Thai, and then in fact and it gets shortened in Thai, as the word has become assimilated into Thai as Put. So the Thais say Put, meaning Buddha. What would happen in Burmese, Sanyu? We've got the well-known word Buddha in Pali. Has the word been, I'm sure it has been, assimilated into ordinary spoken Burmese?
Yes. Just we don't pronounce da. Instead we say Buddha.
You'd say Buddha in ordinary. Sorry, say again.
Buddha.
Buddha. Okay.
So we don't hear the double D. I think neither nor aspirated sound.
That's interesting. What? Thank you, Sanyu. So what? In fact, the Burmese are doing exactly the same as we're doing in English. They're dropping the aspiration of the dha, and they aren't doubling it. So Buddha. So in fact, the Burmese are altering the pronunciation coincidentally in exactly the same way as the English are as well. But Buddha.
Buddha, yes.
But if they're being careful and chanting in Thai, then of course you'd be more careful to double it, the Buddha. And of course, as we all know, I'll say it again, that I'll be right with you, Simon, that if you fail to get the doubling right and you're chanting in unison, you will get out of step because the doubling does actually lengthen. It takes longer to say a syllable with a double letter. In fact, it should, in theory, take exactly twice the time. So, Simon, please come in.
I mean, I just remembered there's this very controversial phrase from Ajahn Chah and the Thai Forest Sangha
Mm-hmm.
to do with the one who knows, like a watcher within, which is written down as Puru, P-O-O, new word, R-O-O. So presumably this comes from them trying to say bu or pu. Could you throw any light on that one?
The one who knows is a puru.
Puru, yeah, it's a Thai phrase, very controversial because it's kind of people are saying, oh, he's talking about some eternal chitta, which cannot be according to Orthodox Theravada. But the phrase is puru.
I can't link that to Pali. I'm just wondering whether this may actually be native Thai words, puru.
Thing is, could it be it's something to do with bu, but they're saying pu, as you've put on your example on the screen there.
Yes, it could be, but I'm not quite sure what it would be in Pali.
Well, I don't know. I mean, well,
but sometimes when they give instructions, they say keep a buddho in, and I wonder whether it is related.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's one of the standard forms of meditation is just the recitation of buddho. And that's a very standard way of doing it, and with a buddho on the in breath and the out breath. But in the way you've seen it, Simon, how is it spelt?
P-O-O, new word, R-double-O. I'll send you a link.
If you could, because I'd be interested in following that up.
And just to throw another one in about how it goes even further west, somebody's remarked that the Californians are now putting an R on the end, so as well as a long U. So Buddha.
Oh well, goodness me! So where do they put the R at the end of the purur?
No, at the end of the word Buddha. So Buddha. Buddha said this.
Oh, goodness me.
And there is another direction in which it might be going, which is a hardening of the aspiration. In Italian, you say io ho, tu hai, egli ha. In Veneto, we say mia go, ti te ge, ed olga. You see, and even when they try to speak Italian, they say io, but they don't say the H. Either they harden it into a G or it disappears altogether. Easier, I suppose.
That's interesting because, in fact, even within the development of Pali and Sanskrit, you can get a G becoming a H. And so interesting that there's all these interesting little points in Veneto where we see kind of echoes of Pali and Sanskrit.
Yeah, we come straight from the steppes in Central Russia.
Straight from the Yamnaya culture 6,000 years ago. Okay.
They had a bad sense of direction,
Went west to Italy instead of southeast into the Ganges Valley.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any more? If I'll take any more on that, and then we can move to the Dhammapada. Cool. So I think I accidentally not deleted it, but closed it. Bear with me while I just open it again. File, open, right. But I've noticed, I don't know if anyone else had, that I need to get on with some more YouTubes on the Dhammapada soon, because I think this is the last one that's up on the teaching videos. So I'd better get on with some more pronto. So this is the last verse in chapter 9. Papa Vaggo. So na antalikhe na samuddamajhe na pabbatanam vivarang pavissa na vijjati so jagati padeso yatatthito muccaya papakamma. And once more. Na antalikhe na samuddamajhe na pabbatanam vivaram pavissa na vijjati so jagati padeso yatatthito muccaya papakamma.
I think there is one more verse, James, that's very similar, and you did the last video on the two of them together, didn't you?
You're right. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you, Paladin. I'll read this as well, because it's identical in most respects. So na antalikhe na samuddamajhe na pabbatanam vivaram pavissa na vijjati so jagati padeso yatatthito na pasahiyya machu. Okay, so just the last couple of words are different. So we'll do these together. So na antalikhe na samuddamajhe. I've done a detailed note, I think. Yeah, actually, no, not so detailed. I've done another detailed note elsewhere. This is enough for the moment. The note that I've done here, the antari, in Sanskrit is antariksha, which has become Pali antalikha. The antar, or antari in compound, sometimes in compound, antari, is exactly the same as what we have in Latin as inter, which would come into English as inter, meaning in between. So, and the ka, it's from the ksha, meaning the abode of something, so the in-between abode. So the idea is that you have the earth and you have the Brahma Loka, the divine abodes, and the antariksha, in Pali antalikha, is the in-between space, the in-between abode. And it's regarded as being, well, not on earth, not in the Brahma Loka, not in what we might describe in, say, Christian English as heaven, but above the surface of the earth, but in between heaven and earth. So we could reasonably translate it as just the sky, but bear in mind that the meaning is the in-between abode. So, and here, of course, the locative, not in the antalikhe, not in the sky, the in-between abode, nasamuddamajhe, not literally in the middle of the ocean, in the ocean middle. Napabbatanam vivaram pavissa, and not by entering into a crevice of the mountains, into a little cave in a mountain, not by doing any of these things, or nowhere there, navijati, there doesn't, literally, it is not found, meaning it does not exist. So jagatipadeso, that place on earth, yatatito, literally where stood, in English they standing in which or by being in which, mucheya papakamma, one might be liberated or released from one's papakamma, from one's evil doing. This kamma there, this is the ablative, the kamma, from the doing. Mucheya takes the ablative where one is released from one's evil deeds, from one's evil kamma. This word samudra, we have the, oops, in samudra, oops, sorry. Samudra. In Sanskrit, it is samudra. And it's a combination of sam, meaning in this particular sense, in this most common sense of being gathered together, joined together, like the Latin co and con. And the udra is cognate to the Greek hydro is pronounced in English, meaning water. And the udra comes into English as water. So udra, water, and the English, Sanskrit udra, an English word water, and the Greek hudor are all from the same root, meaning water. And the samudra is where the waters are gathered, namely the ocean, the gathered waters, like the rivers, the small seas, as it were, gather into the ocean. So the ocean is the great gathering of water. Okay, Mariano, sorry to see you go. Bye then. Bye. So the Samudra Madhye is literally the ocean middle, so in the middle of the ocean. Napabbatanam vivaram pavissa. Pabbata, which in Sanskrit is parvata, meaning a mountain, genitive plural, Sanskrit parvatanam, Pali pabbatanam, and the vivara is a hole, a crack or a fissure or a crevice, or like a little cave, a vivara. A mouse lives in a vivara, literally something that is uncovered, vivara, something uncovered. It's the word used for a little hole. So not in a crevice or a crack in the mountains. And pavissa, meaning literally having entered, and here it's got the sense of by entering, not even by going into a little crack in the mountains, hiding yourself away, can you escape from the effect of your evil deeds. So this pavissa it's from the root vish, meaning to enter. In Sanskrit, pravish means to enter into, and the absolutive having entered in Sanskrit is pravishya, having entered or by entering. And the pravishya, by standard mutation, becomes pavissa in Pali. Bear in mind that, as so often happens, this is what we call the absolutive, normally used to express a sequence of events. Having done something, having done this, having done that, you finally do that. That was the original meaning of this, what we call the absolutive form. But it often has a kind of a purposive meaning, not even by entering a crack in the mountains can you hide. So not even by hiding yourself away, literally having entered a crack in the mountains, not even by that means can you hide away. Navijati so jakati padeso yatapito muchaya papakamma. So it's from the root vid, which has different meaning. The most ancient meaning of the word, the root vid, is a combination of to see and to know, which we have like in Sanskrit. Vidya is knowledge, avidya, non-knowledge, literally non-knowledge means ignorance, which we have in Pali, of course, is avidya, in the standard word for ignorance in the philosophical, spiritual sense. So that's from the root vid. It also has the meaning of to find. So let me explain. It's worth spending a moment on this because you'll see it quite a lot. You've got the root vid, to see or to know, in the sense of to see. It comes into Latin as videre, and our word video, visual, vision, come from that same root. So it's come to mean to see in Latin, but it means more to know in Sanskrit and Pali. But that same root with the inserted nasal in the present tense, vind, originally it was the same root. And that root vind turns up in English as find, vind, find. It's that same word. So our English word wit, in the sense of knowing something, you might do something unwittingly, meaning unknowingly. So wit and find actually are both from the same primitive root. The idea of knowing where something is, seeing where it is, therefore being able to find it. There's all that kind of semantic overlap between them. But the root of vind is actually vid. So take the passive form, Sanskrit vidyate. For the passive, you just add a yat to the root. You didn't say vindyate, but vidyate. Literally, it is found. That's the Sanskrit form. And Pali form, what happens? The dya becomes a double j, and the ate, the Pali normally has ati, so vidyati. Literally, it is found. So that place in the earth, jagati padeso, that place in the world, it means there is no place in the world to be found. Yatta, where, pito, standing, means standing in which, muchaya papakamma, one might be released, one could be released from one's evil deed. Now, this use of the passive is actually quite easy to form and quite regular. Let's take two roots, the two roots that we have in this verse. first of all, look how it's done in Sanskrit, because that makes everything much, much clearer. So vid, then you add the ya to the root.
James, are you writing?
Sorry, thank you. There we are. So vidya, and it's the atmanepada, the past sense of vidyate, literally, it is found. Much means to release or to let go. The original meaning was to, as it were, to release something out of your hand, or you had, for example, holding a bird in your hand, releasing the bird. And it turns up as in vimutti, as in the vimutti magga. It's used in a spiritual sense as liberation. Again, the passive is formed in exactly the same way. Look at Sanskrit here. Muchyate. He, she, or it is released. Vidyate. It is found. So, in the verse we're looking at here, you see the Pali forms of it. The vidyati, it's the long E at the end there. Vidyati is anomalous. That's done by the poet for the sake of the meter. In regular prose, it would be a short E, vidyati. And here, mucheya, that's the optative form, but concentrate on the, sorry, I'm looking at the now, concentrate on the much there, mucheya, and the vidj. So what happens here is the vidya of Sanskrit becomes vidya in Pali. And the muchya, the chya of Sanskrit becomes the mucha in Pali. So it's the doubling, is the assimilation of the consonant with the d-ya, and then the doubling into a j. That's the giveaway in Pali to show it's a passive. And muchati, that doubling of the ch indicates from muchya. In Sanskrit, the muchya is a passive form, therefore mucha in Pali. It's this doubling that indicates that it's passive. So in Sanskrit, it ends in the atmanepada te, but in Pali, it normally ends in a t. So vidyati, muchati. So know those as passive forms. So mucheya, the optative, one might be or one could be released. So navidyati so jagati padeso, that so jagati padeso, that place upon the earth, navidyati, does not exist. Yata, where tito, standing in which, we would say in English, mucheya papakamma, one might be released from the papakamma, or from one's evil kamma, one's evil deeds. This Jagati Padeso, I've done a note on it further down the page. So it'd be worth a while, those who haven't done so yet, to read that note after this class, which we're finishing in a moment. One interesting point, this word Jagat, and also Jagati, from the old Vedic word meaning that which moves or goes. It means the world. So in Sanskrit, Jagat is the world. And we have the word Nata, meaning Lord. So among the Hindus, you have there's a deity which is the Lord of the world, which is Jagat plus Nata.
You're writing, James.
Sorry. Who was that who reminded me? Paladin. Normally Paladin's first to remind me. I think Paladin's been a little bit slow. Maybe Paladin's just leaving it to the others now. Thank you. So Jagatnatha, by Sandhi, internal combination, the t plus then it becomes a double N. So this is the Hindu deity, the Jagatnatha becomes Jagannatha. Do you use that word in Sinhala? Is you among the from the Hindu such influences there is from the Hindus in Sri Lanka? You can tell me Delhi and Srinamala. Do you have the word Jagannatha, Jagannathan, or anything like that in Sri Lanka? It's a Hindu deity. Anyway, there is.
I don't know. I don't know whether I never come across Jagat.
I'm sorry, say again, I didn't catch well?
No, I never knew this one. It's not there.
It's
probably, I don't know.
I think it's peculiarly a Hindu thing, but the reason I'm dealing with this Hindu thing is actually quite interesting. Among certain devotees, Hindu devotees in India of the deity Jagannatha, it's where some people actually get themselves into a religious frenzy, and the great statue, the Rupa of Jagannatha, is pulled through the streets on a huge, it's really big and heavy, wheeled cart, and a huge one. And devotees will sometimes throw themselves and deliberately kill themselves under the wheels as an act of devotion. And so the Jagannatha, which then in Hindi is pronounced Jagannath, came to have this meaning of some huge unstoppable force from mighty vehicle. And oddly enough, it came into English as a juggernaut. So the juggernaut is the anglicized form from the Hindi Jagannath, which from the Jagannatha, Jagatnatha, Lord of the world. So back to where we were. Here is that same word, but in the Jagati, in the world. It's the locative form, and Padesa means a place or a spot. So we've just gone past one. I'll resume next time on the explanation of that. So what we'll do then, we'll wind up this session now, and we will resume at the spot in a week's time. So thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you hopefully back on the original platform, but I'll send a formal email to you all just to tell you whether it's been fixed up or not. Well, one way or another, I'll let you know which Zoom coordinates to use for next time. Okay, thank you to all, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
James.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.